Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. This is Drew Amoroso again, and thanks for joining us today for this week's edition of 11 at 11. I really appreciate you being here, and congratulations to you for taking some time out of your busy week to work on yourself today. I just want to say up front that with all that's going on in the world right now, this is a really difficult time for us collectively and for our communities, and it's also been a really tough time for many of us individually. So before we get started today, I want to encourage each of you to spend some time thinking about how you can really take care of yourself right now. And specifically spending time thinking about what it is you can do to sort of process all that's happening in the world. One of the very best things you can do is take care of your mind, right, and your thoughts right now. Our minds are really good at leading us down paths that are not good for us, and leave that unchecked, our minds will really do whatever they want. So now is an important time to be vigilant about the thoughts that are occupying our minds. And this includes thoughts that you're having during your workday. So this week, I wanted to introduce you to a really powerful tool that you can use throughout your day that I think will help you recenter your thoughts that you're having, and it's what I call a workday mantra. So we'll get to that in a second. But before we dive into that concept, since we're still in the early stages of kicking off this series, I want to just take about 30 seconds or so to explain again what the purpose of this series is. So you spend at least a third or more of every day at work, right? So it makes a lot of sense for us to invest in understanding how we can improve the way that we move through a workday. And that includes our workday mindset, how we manage our emotions and our energy, how we take care of ourselves throughout a workday, how to build an efficient, effective day, how to manage relationships with the people that we work with, and that list goes on and on. And because we spend so much time at work, understanding what gets in our way and how we can take action so that we can make positive changes has to be an incredibly high priority for us. So it turns out that if we want to make impactful changes that will stick, the best way to do that is to focus on small incremental changes over time. When we focus on these small incremental changes over time, our brains are much more receptive to those small changes, and that makes developing new routines easier for us, and it helps us also to build a certain amount of positive momentum. So this series is really designed to just get you focused each week on one thing that you can do to help improve your workday. So you have lots of things that are competing for your time each day, and every episode that you dial into will shoot to finish it in around 11 minutes. So as we move through the episode today, if you have a question, you can submit it by clicking on the chat button at the bottom of your screen. Or if you want to ask a question live, just go ahead and let me know you want to ask it live, or you can also raise your hand. I intentionally put this up so that we could see one another's faces, and it's really good to see a lot of you that I saw last week. And I think over time, I think it's important for us to get to know one another. And I would like this to feel more like a discussion. So if you feel like you want to ask your question out loud and in front of the group, please feel free to do that. And I encourage you to put your video on so that you don't have to if you don't want to, so no pressure, but it also just makes it feel like more of a group discussion instead of a presentation. This is not a presentation, it's more of a discussion. So I just want to suggest that too. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. So this week, I want to talk about a really important concept that is related to the power of repetitive thoughts. And what I want you to walk away with today is just a framework for how to start incorporating this really powerful concept into your day-to-day routines. But first, I want to start with a little bit of background. I mentioned this last week, but if you think about it, most of the challenges and issues that we have during a workday have very little to do with the performance of the actual work itself, right? The majority of the challenges that we face are related to thoughts or feelings or emotions that we experience in connection with the actual work itself. So It's our minds that are really the drivers for how we move through and interpret everything that happens during a workday. In addition to that, at their core, we can trace every action that we take back to an originating thought that we had. So in other words, our thoughts are ultimately what drives our actions. And because of this, our thoughts are really at the heart of everything that we do. So the most important thing we can do is learn how to train our brains to think differently, or at least to think in a way that we want them to. So we have to learn how to strengthen our workday mindset so that we can be active participants in shaping how our workday goes. So if you happen to feel powerless during a workday over the thoughts that you're having, or if you're consistently moving through your day feeling unhappy or wanting to make a change, the place that you have to start is learning how to strengthen and work on your mindset. So mental strength, this is probably the most important thing I want to communicate to you today. Mental strength is secured exactly the same way that physical strength is secured, and that's through repetition. So we are all very familiar with the concept that if you exercise regularly, then you're going to see changes in the way that you look and feel, right? We all know this to be true, right? The more I exercise, the more I eat well over time, the better I'll look and feel. By exercising, I get to literally shape my body and shape how I feel each day, right? And when I don't exercise, then I just invite my body to do whatever it wants to do. And I have much less say in what it wants to do, right? It can expand, it can contract, it can feel tired, it can feel weak. It can literally do whatever it wants to do. And so we're all very familiar with this framework as it applies to our body. But here's the most important point that I want to communicate to you today. This same framework applies to our mind and our mindset. The more that we work on it consistently, the more we work it out, the more we take care of it, the more we get to shape and control what it does. So the more we take care of it, the more we get to shape and control what it does. So by exercising our mind, we can address that fear, those thoughts of negativity, and we can also make room for the kind of growth that we want to see as well. And just like with exercising our body, it's about the reps, right? The more repetitions we have, the faster we will grow. Now, I want you to take a second to picture a time when you've wanted to make a change physically, right? So maybe you haven't exercised in a while, right? I think we can all picture a time when we've not exercised in a while or not taking care of our bodies. Let's say you want to start exercising 3 times a week. The first few times you get up and you engage in that exercise, it is hard, right? We feel sluggish, it's a challenge. We also don't see results immediately, right? Which can make it hard to want to follow through. But we know from experience that if we stick with it and we put in the reps, then eventually it does get easier. It becomes more natural and our body actually starts to crave that feeling of exercise. So it's the exact same process when you want to train your mind. Let's say you want to change the way you think about a certain situation, or maybe you want to start to establish a different belief about you and how you move through your workday. So just as an example for today, let's say you want to increase your confidence in the quality of the work that you're doing. The first time we have a new thought about your self-confidence and the work that you're doing, it's hard to accept that thought as true, right? It's just not what we're used to thinking, right? You're more used to that voice in your head that says you're not good enough, or other people think you're not good enough. And so that new thought is initially in direct opposition with the thoughts that you've been having. But if you think about it again, and then again, and then again, it becomes easier to accept the more you repeat that thought. And if we keep doing it over and over again, we've now formed a habit and a new way of thinking. And if we engage in this new way of thinking long enough, and specifically if we keep repeating this new thought, then this new thought becomes automatic. There's no more room for doubt. We've established a belief simply through repetition. So in order for this new thought to take hold, we have to be intentional about getting in those reps. We have to make time for ourselves to repeat the thought and turn it into a belief, and we have to give it time to grow. And again, I want you to really think about this exercise analogy. I think it's a perfect metaphor that we can use to apply to this concept. So I know that was a significant amount of foundation to lay, but that's where today's concept comes into play. It's this idea of a Workday mantra. So in these last few minutes, let's move through this this idea of a Workday mantra. Just by way of quick background, a mantra is traditionally a word or a phrase that would be repeated during meditation or quiet time in an effort to really hone your focus on a single cause or a belief that you want to instill, right? A thought that you want to concentrate on. So it helps to really get laser focused on an intention that you want to achieve, and it's a powerful way to change your thoughts. And we can take this idea of a mantra and apply it to our workday. So specifically, your Workday mantra is just a series of words or phrases that, when repeated, help you change a belief that you have about yourself during your workday. So here's what I want you to do. First, if you want to use this practice of a Workday mantra, what I want you to do is identify one thought that's you. They make it one thought about how you think about yourself or your abilities. So going back to my example, maybe your thought is, my work isn't that good. Clients don't like my work. Everyone around me knows that my work isn't great, right? I'm a phony, right? And this is the thought, perhaps, that ends up popping into your mind consistently. Second, once you've identified that thought, now we're going to create a Workday mantra. And in order to do that, I want you to come up with a phrase or a second thought that is aligned with and represents the new way you want to think about this particular situation or this particular belief that you have about yourself. So maybe the phrase that you come up with is, I do excellent work for my clients. I do excellent work for my clients. So this phrase represents the new belief you want to have that more accurately represents who you are. So the third step is to repeat this very specific phrase over and over several times a day, or at least over and over again for a small period of time. Saying it out loud is the best way to do this. There is science behind this. This is not my opinion. This is backed by lots of science. If you don't want to say it out loud, you can write it down over and over on a piece of paper. That also works too, but you have to repeat it, and I want you to say the same thing every single time. I do excellent work for my clients. I do excellent work for my clients. I do excellent work for my clients. I would recommend that you start by doing this for 2 minutes straight without any interruptions. And as you're doing this, I want you to envision a time when you got some positive feedback from someone who praised you for your work. So really burn into your brain those times when I actually have really done great work for my clients, right? So have that image in your mind. The more you say this phrase over and over, the more it sinks into your subconscious, and the more you start to believe it and acknowledge it as true. We're going back to this idea of repetitions, right? This is how we start to build reps with new thoughts that we want to have. And it's one way to start exercising our brain so that it can grow and replace those limiting thoughts. So doing this might feel a little awkward at first. Really, you want me to say out loud this phrase over and over again? And the answer is yes, I do want you to do that. There's a ton of science, like I said, that says that this kind of an exercise really helps to solidify new positive thoughts. So to recap, here's the steps that I want you to take. Step 1, identify that limiting belief. What is a thought that you have that keeps recurring, right? That is getting in your way throughout the day. Step 2, identify your Workday mantra. What's a series of a phrase or a series of words that you're going to say that will shift your belief about this particular situation? And then 3, I want you to repeat that mantra for that Workday mantra for at least 2 minutes a day. Please give this time to work. I promise you that it will lead to results for you. Consider me your trainer, right? If you went to the gym and said, hey, I want to make some significant changes to my my physical body in a week, your trainer would say, that's not going to happen, right? I'm encouraging you to play the long game on this one. You will start to see results slowly over time, but please stick with this and give it time to work. This is something that you can shift over time. You can change the language, but start with just one mantra that you want to repeat over and over and see where that gets you. Okay, I want to leave some time for questions if there are any. You can raise your hand. You can type a question into the chat button. Anything comes to mind for you about how to put this into practice, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, seeing no questions, we will go ahead and leave it there for today. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Would love to connect with you and get your help spreading the word about this series. If you could share with a friend or give us a shout out on social media, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate it. We want to help as many people as we possibly can improve their workday. I've got our tags here at the bottom of the screen, so let's connect on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thanks as always for everybody who's showed up. It's so awesome to see so many faces from last week, and I think over time it'll be great for us to continue to get to know one another. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Next episode is next Monday at the same time. I will see you then. Go have a great work day.